Well, hello everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We're going to be drawing a hand, and you might hear Chewy upstairs barking. I think he's barking at me actually, but tonight we're going to be drawing a hand. We're going to be using some grid work. You're going to learn how to do that tonight, and so I'm excited to get started with you here and to teach you a little bit about drawing hands. And one of the reasons this kind of came up for me, a couple of reasons I've been thinking about it. I did a painting recently with a hand in it that was kind of the focal point. And hands tell so many stories. And whether they're young or old, they are very beautiful. They're often very challenging to draw. So today we're going to take some baby steps into learning how to draw a hand here. So without further ado, let me jump into class. If you're tuning in with me tonight, please let me know that you're here in chat. And if you have any questions that crop up during our class, go ahead and put them in chat and I will respond accordingly. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's class, and I will see you guys after a little bit. Okay, so we're going to talk about gridding a little bit, and I just want to demonstrate on Procreate how you can grid any kind of artwork that you want. Now you can get much more complex in your gridding system, but for this class we're not going to get more complex than this. So usually what I do is draw from corner to corner for my image. So you can see here we've created an X by going corner to corner. And by doing that, we know where our center line is here. So then we can just add a line across, and then we can add a line through vertically, and then you can see we have broken it down into a grid. And so this way we can create the same grid on a piece of paper, and it will help us draw what we need to for this hand so it can be in proportion. This is just one way to approach drawing, but I promise to teach you a little bit about gridding. And I've gotten kind of lazy in my older age, and I sort of like this method because it's a little simpler. It doesn't require any math, and the most important part about it will be that you need to have the same kind of paper shape as you do image shape or dimensions. So for my students, I have created a worksheet that has this overall box where you can use that as your guide for your drawing and your drawing size. But this is how I made my grid. And then what I will do for the image that we use to draw, I will create some transparency in this so you can kind of see what's happening behind the lines. So you can continue to work with it, and it makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so the other thing that I want to talk to you about before we get started is when I think about hands, I always think, kind of, I'm looking at the overall shape, and I always think of them as an egg shape. But you can see here that my fingers are sort of spread in this image, but I'll kind of sketch here, like take a look at how this overall shape is. It's spread a little bit, but hands are generally kind of an oval egg shape. Of course, we have the wrist that comes off here, and there are some shapes that happen here which make it a little bit differently, and we have the thumb. Now, sometimes we have fingers of different shapes and sizes, and so really it depends on your image. But also, about halfway, we have where the fingers begin. Okay, so when you're looking at measurements, we can take our middle finger here, and I'll measure that finger to the base there. And with this line, I can go to the base and go to where my wrist is. Now, it's almost equidistant. So this line where we have where our fingers begin here is about equal distance here. So we can kind of use that as a rough estimate for our fingers. Of course, our thumb, when I look at how to draw hands, I'm always looking at where things measure from. So where does, in this particular image, where does that line straight across go? It goes to my pinky. It's not always going to be that way, but these are ways that you can measure and use alignment to have a more accurate drawing. So we're going to go back to our first example here. So we have this egg shape. From then you can build your hand. You're always looking at the distance between fingers here, the negative space. So look at this and how this is shaped. You're going to want to use your grids in this class to help you figure out where things should be placed. But also, if you're just drawing a hand, you should be looking at these shapes in between, because it will inform your drawing and make it more accurate. Sometimes it's helpful if you need to look at angles to draw in the angles of the fingers. Sometimes we have crooked fingers, which we don't realize. I recommend highly that you practice drawing your own hands and just doing quick sketches of your hands, because it will make you better at it, and you're looking at different shapes, you're moving them in different shapes. I just didn't want to give you a complex image just yet, because I think you need to know the basics of how the hand sort of looks. And of course, if you're a student, I will include some supplementary technical videos for you that you might find really helpful as you draw hands and think about drawing hands in the future. So I hope this was helpful as we get started on our drawing tonight. If you do have questions, go ahead and throw them in our chat here. But as you can see, we have our paper set up, so we have the same dimensions that we have with our image on the left-hand side. And this will help us have a non-distorted drawing of this hand. So you're going to want to do your X and then find your center points vertically and horizontally, and then get started with learning how to grid this hand, as well as separately we're also going to be looking at how to draw this hand. So I'm going to be drawing with you here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it well enough so that you can draw along with us. So without further ado, we'll get started. I'm going to disappear from the feed here just so we can concentrate on drawing and what you're seeing there. Anything that I might need to show you, like sighting, I will come back on with this camera. Okay, so as you can see, we're just sitting here. We're going to observe what our hand looks like here and overall shape. So one thing I want to do is kind of note very gently. I have this is a 2B pencil. You might want to have a 4H pencil, but I'm going to be using very light marks here to just note some things. So looking at the center middle finger, it kind of ends here approximately. We can look at the side here. And what's great about breaking up these pieces here is you can look at the negative space where where our hand is not, and use that to also inform where the hand is. So I see it's not halfway, it's a little over halfway here. We have the side of our hand. I'll look here. I might make a mark here. For this portion of the hand, the thumb is just slightly over this center line, but it's a lot closer to the edge. So you're just noting things when you're drawing. I'm just noting where the wrist might come in, how it is in comparison to the center line. It's pretty close to the center line here, and it kind of draws up. Now, if you're working really lightly here, you don't have to worry about erasing things or being too committed. We are just making notes of things. Maybe a finger might be here, and our pinky could be here. You're always kind of moving around and looking at things because you might find that you're off. We do have kind of this line that where our thumb kind of connects. Of course, we will have some minor changes here. So I've made some notes here, and then kind of what I like to do is we start with those big shapes first. So as I noted in the earlier part of this session, just kind of sketching the overall shape. Really lightly. We have this kind of comes in, and you can see I'm working pretty loosely. I'm not tight like this drawing. I'm loosely sketching in this hand. Like I do need to make a note, I think here. I think that's where our hand kind of connects with our wrist, but again, you can always use your pencil to look at your image and see what angle is this wrist at. You know, I'm always doing that when I'm working on my sketchbook, and then I can take it to my image. So say my image is over here, take it over to the image, and then I can just hold that shape and take it to my drawing. It's very helpful, and I hope that you will do that for yourselves. So we have this overall kind of shape. It looks a little bit like a mitten. Of course, some things are going to be refined here. And then I also just want you to note where our center line for our hand is. Excuse my nails here, but where our fingers begin here. And when I'm looking at my image, it's kind of in this area here. We're not committing too much. We're going to use this grid system to kind of help us make a more accurate drawing. But we can make a note here. And yeah, we have a good start for our hand. We can start refining their shapes. Now, what I like to do for my fingers is I'm kind of noting the shape of the fingers. So you can see in this image the fingers are curved a little bit, but I'm just drawing a line of where, you know, like some of them are straighter than others. Really lightly where these fingers are. Hands are notoriously hard to draw. This is why I thought this would be a great tool to teach you both a grid system to help you can employ this for anything that you're drawing as long as your image, this image, corresponds with the proper proportions of our page. Okay, so now I can start looking at this and start refining and looking at the negative space. So you can see here, this is negative space. We're drawing this hand, and we're going to draw the whole hand, but we're going to use our negative space to also assess these shapes and angles to help inform our overall drawing. So I will probably start here. And I can see that we have some wrinkles here where our hand kind of connects. I'm just going to kind of note them here. We're not spending a lot of time perfecting that, but I'm looking at this palm shape, and this kind of curves here. Also assessing this shape here. So that's good. And I will look in this square here, or this triangle, I'm sorry. We have this overall square and this triangle. What is this shape here? Like I might be able to come in a little bit here. And we're not using our erasers just yet. We're just noting. We can erase things later if you need to. But I have a bit bigger negative shape that's in this area, so you can kind of assess that. I'm going to note that I have a little bit of shadow here when we look at our image. And, you know, this area is pretty easy because we have a lot, you know, this negative space here and this negative space here. We can move to this triangle here. And the thing that I have to tell myself, the thing that I'll tell you, is you don't have to be committed to the lines that you draw. Please don't get stuck in being committed. If something needs to change, go ahead and make that change. That's why we're working lightly. And I'm going to just turn my camera on. You may or may not be able to really see this, but I'm looking at my image here, and I'm actually looking at this line here, and I'm looking at my image on the screen. You can do that with the image that we have on the screen. And I'm trying to assess, is this edge in the middle of this line here? So I'm kind of going to use my pencil. You probably can't see me, but I'm using my pencil like this, and I'm going to measure this top portion here from here to here to see if that is equal distance from here to here. And so it looks like this when you're looking at me. When you're looking at your paper, but I can kind of use that, and I really just take my arm and I'm as far out as I can because I have that luxury right now. And I can kind of see that it's not equal distance, so this mark might be okay here. And so just checking myself. Want to check this drawing here. Sometimes you also want to use your pencil to see where a line might line up. So there's this slight, oops. There's a slight bump here of kind of this finger, the thumb here, and the palm. Where does that line up through the finger? Now, hands are not easy, but this is less complex than, say, maybe a portrait is as far as looking at things. So, you know, it might just align with a finger. So for now, this is probably going to be okay in this area. As I start moving up here, I'm going to look at this negative space. We have this kind of V shape here, and see where our thumb aligns. This is where I always struggle, is this knuckle here. But I can always kind of go in and change anything that I need to. And here, Here we can assess this V. Does it need to come back down a little bit? It might. And this curves this way. So I'm noting that as we get up into the finger. Now my students requested that we try to do this in this way as opposed to on Procreate, because it's easier for them to see some of the concepts here. So I hope it is a little bit easier for you to look at and see. So right now I'm kind of using my pencil here to say, okay, my knuckle is not right. How is it off? And where, so I'm just taking my pencil to my image here and seeing what does that knuckle kind of line up with? Where is it kind of in from this distance to here? And this is how I do a lot of my horses. You know, you're kind of assessing like where does this line up here? So we'll just keep assessing this shape. I think this might be able to curve a little bit more. Maybe it's a little bit bigger here. Thumbs are weird for sure. And if you, I mean, they come in all kind of shapes and they're kind of fun. This kind of curves here. So I'm getting a little bit dark here, but it's okay. Can't let our paper move here. A lot of variables here in the studio today. So this is okay. I'm going to move on. We do have this curved area here. Now, the reason this kind of, I've been thinking about this kind of assignment is because it's a great drawing assignment, but also I recently did a painting that was for a show in Colorado, and I did concentrate on the hand of an equine massage therapist who, you know, it was illustrating the work that she does with her horses and how powerful touch is. And so I thought it might be a really good assignment. So I'm kind of looking to see where this corresponds with my grid. I just got to try to keep that in mind. Now, sometimes I'll have to come in and reshape my fingers here, but this is a good start. And the grid system is a good tool to learn. And you kind of know where your knuckles are. Have a bit of this intersection here. Okay. And you can see this area in between here. So I'm looking at that in our image here. And this middle finger, it kind of runs next to the center line. You're also looking at the negative space in between fingers. That can tell us a lot. Do they connect? Are they right next to each other? So we're just kind of blocking these in here. Also kind of look at the shape, whether you have nails or you don't have nails. Do they come above the finger there? Where does it come and intersecting with this line? Do your best here. I feel like a lot of times what can really inform your hands to make them look realistic is how the connections are, how the skin is. So keep that in mind. Of course, this is our longest finger, or at least in this hand here. So where does this align with our hand? You know, or I'm sorry, where does this align with the finger next to it? So you're looking this way, you're looking this way. You're going to make adjustments. So I'm just going to kind of draw these straight down. I'm going to have to make a few adjustments here. You also have the complication of this ring potentially. And why is this important? Well, this is just important so you can improve your paintings. If you're able to draw, you're always going to have much better paintings. And so I encourage anyone who has an interest in painting to really practice drawing. Does it have to be perfect? It sure does not, but it will help inform you as you go about your artistic journey. This finger curves a little bit, so we noted that curve. You're also going to kind of want to assess the width as I'm looking at this. Some fingers are a little bit maybe wider than other fingers, so you'll just kind of be keeping an eye on that. This kind of aligns with this knuckle here. It doesn't go as far as this line, so just kind of assessing the curves. And I actually chose to use this hand. I was going to have maybe look at the hand that I used for my painting that is in the museum there, but I thought it's really nice to have hands that have a little bit of character. Maybe they're older hands, just because they have more character. Working hands. So if you want to kind of double check yourself, there are a few things that you can do. Of course, standing back from your picture is really helpful, or taking a mirror and facing the opposite wall with your mirror, and you're looking into the mirror and it's reflecting back your two images. That's often very helpful, in art teachers at college level oftentimes will recommend that. And even my painting mentor, she really uses that as a tool, and I've been using it as a tool. Just helps you kind of sometimes spot something that's off that you can't see because you've been sitting looking at something for quite a while. And I apologize, this is kind of off kilter. It's kind of the best way for me to be able to see what I'm doing and for you to be able to see what you're doing. So from here, we have a pretty good roadmap. We may decide to choose to erase some things in the future. I'm going to keep whittling on this and keep working on this to assess, you know, what's happening in each section here that might need to be there to make this more realistic. So now I'm kind of going to be working on some of these shapes, some lines. Like I see this line that comes down here, this kind of webbing action. And how these shapes are. I'm going to grab another pencil. So if you've been working, now I was working in a 2B, I recommend a 2H to get you started for your sketching portion. And I have this 2B, but this is also a 2B. This is a little bit more of a normal drawing pencil. So you may choose to go back and forth, or if you are a person who likes mechanical pencils, you can use a mechanical pencil to do this. Because of the angle that I'm at for this drawing, I think, you know, I'll probably move back and forth between this kind of pencil, whoops, and one of these pencils. The reason that, if you haven't tuned in before, the reason that I use a pencil like this and I'm sketching really loosely is so I can be loose. I don't get a hard pencil line before I'm ready to, because things will change. And the reason that I have this upright is really when you're looking at your reference image, you want to be able to have your reference image in front of you with also your drawing. And I think this is much better on your neck. I've spent years hunched over drawings on my desk, but what happens is oftentimes your drawing gets distorted. And so this is why I'm having you and why I am drawing upright, just so there's less, I'm less likely to have that happen, hopefully, and we'll be able to have a more accurate kind of drawing. So I'm kind of looking at where my nail is on this, what angle it kind of curves this way. Now you could probably get out your eraser if you wanted to at this stage, if it helps you kind of define an edge, or to be able to see an area here. Kind of a long thumb, but it kind of comes in here a little. We also have some indentations here. Not sure if I love working with this. The other thing that I'm finding is the line that I have for my reference photo is a little obscured here. So I can zoom in on my image and just kind of see what is the shape actually. And what is this shape? Because I think I've got to fix this edge. Now this is pretty minor, but might help me feel like this looks a little more natural. We've got our lines here. Okay, so I'm feeling a little bit better about the thumb. And I can start shaping other aspects of this. I see kind of a slight indentation here, and then that finger goes out. Still assessing how things align. I think I gotta go back to this pencil. Now you can choose to draw this, as you know, on watercolor paper, because our next private class will be painting this hand. I love all the colors that you can use when you're painting a hand, so I think that class is going to be really fun and hopefully interesting to students. So you can choose to draw it on watercolor paper, or I'm just drawing it on paper, and then I will trace over this with my watercolor paper when I get ready to paint. So you can choose to do either or. You can use a tracing kind of transfer paper, or you can use a light table. I traditionally, for this kind of stuff, I'm using a light table. You can actually get them pretty inexpensively on Amazon. So you can see I'm leaving, there's skin here on the side here. I may have made that initial nail a little bit long, but you're kind of assess, where does this line up with this bottom of this finger? So you're always kind of looking at how things line up. This kind of lines up with the bottom of the nail here. And the shape of the finger, again, looking at this negative space. Sometimes you have to just keep working at it. And as you can see, I've made these little kind of ovals for our knuckles. They don't have to be perfect. But hands are such a good way to, they tell such a story, don't they? So I can see I'm going to need to maybe redraw this middle finger a little bit, but it does kind of run parallel here. And I may have to kind of carve out this area here. So it's legal to use, this is a kneaded eraser. I think they're the best kind of eraser for drawing in this way. Now, if you're doing murals, I almost did kind of a doodle grid mural or doodle grid for this class, but I thought that might be a little much. It would require a little more technical prowess with, say, your iPad or Procreate. So I chose to do it this way. And this is actually how I'm doing a lot of my paintings these days. I just start with this very simple grid. Some people really grid out. They have lots of little squares to grid out an image. but I found this is a little bit simpler. There's no math involved for me, which is a bonus. And so I think that's good. This is a good way to do it. The X, and then finding your center points. Now that looks a little bit small. Trying to align where does the top of that nail go? This nail might need to be a little bit longer. Not sure here. But it's looking pretty good. Now I challenge you really to practice drawing your own hand. I do at the end of class want to share a website with you of an artist who is really prolific at painting and drawing hands, and you might find that it is a bit of an inspiration for you. Now, when you do clothing or jewelry, the thing about that is that clothing and jewelry wraps around. So it's not just going to be straight across, ending here in line with the finger. Really, your clothing and jewelry, they wrap around oftentimes. So we are hoping to illustrate that. And then, of course, our finger kind of puffs out from here. But you're still just kind of assessing these shapes. We're at a stage where we can really make adjustments still if we need to. I might be a little bit too far over this way, hanging to the right for this particular finger. We kind of have this. I find that these little bits really help like your hand to come together and feel a little bit more real. And I am kind of looking to see where this bit here aligns. You can kind of help yourself read this a little bit better. This kind of curves this way a little bit. This finger might need to be a little bit longer. Just by a hair. So this kind of gives you an idea too of how many changes could be happening, like say in a portrait or something. But I guarantee you, if you kind of use some of these tools, it will definitely help your drawing. I feel like this finger might be a little bit thicker there. Now, if you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in our chat there as we're drawing. Hopefully most of you are drawing, but you may have questions kind of come up for you. And you never know, your question could benefit somebody else who's tuned in here. Knuckles are kind of they're funny looking. Now I probably could move these up a little bit, but I think for the sake of our class, we'll just kind of keep going here. We're doing pretty good for time. This one might be a bit more at an angle. But you have like three portions of a finger. You have this portion here, this portion here, and this portion here. So you're kind of assessing that and how if you have gnarly hands that you're drawing, how that all kind of comes together. Of course, then we cannot forget the knuckles, and this is something that we will kind of look at when we are painting too, because we will shade some of these areas. So you may want to note these areas. Let's see, kind of a knuckle region here that I can kind of draw in, and these are the bones of the hand. We have this knuckle area that kind of, if you draw that line down straight, kind of comes in here. And with our pinky here, kind of looking in this grid here to see where this aligns. We may have to make some adjustments there, but just, it kind of looks a little weird on the angle that this is at here, but we can kind of just note these. And it might also show me how off my drawing is a little. So I could scooch this over a little bit.
Yep, and this might be a little farther out. So keep looking at it, keep assessing. So we kind of move this way for this. That bone, but then our hand and our palm here. Of course, there's some wrinkles here as the hand is kind of flattened. And how do they go? Kind of curve up. Of course, when you get to painting, you're really shading and bringing this to life as well. So that will kind of make a difference there too. I think wrists are kind of always an interesting thing to assess and look at. Now I've really emphasized this portion, which I can lighten that a little bit because I don't really want to draw your eye there. We will shape and paint kind of the shading and develop our hand there with paint, but so this is a pretty good start. If you want to, I think for me, I want to clean up some of my edges a little bit so I can come in with my kneaded eraser and kind of erase out areas or, you know, some areas where I may have corrected a little bit. I find, yep, that the nail is really kind of helps shape the finger, so now not everybody's got long nails. If you're doing a masculine hand, it's going to feel a little bit different. But you can kind of go in and, because I used the kind of pencil lead that I did, I have a little bit thicker kind of lines here. And I would recommend really that you step back and kind of assess your drawing. I'll have to do that here once I get finished, so I can kind of take a look at this. And always when you're drawing, if you don't want to drag your hand through your drawing and smear it, you can always, oops, you can always take a piece of paper and lay it over the top so you're not dragging through your artwork. But I would say that this is a pretty good start. Hopefully you can understand the concept of gridding a little bit and you'll be looking at negative space in a new way when you're assessing your own kind of drawing and artwork. It's moved a little bit on me here. I'll see if we can get it tightened up here. Maybe, maybe not. But if I can move this. And when we're looking at it this way, you know, this is really helpful because we have our image over here, and then our drawing over here. So there might be some additional adjustments that I need to make with maybe the nail and some other things there. But hopefully you'll learn something new in this class, and it's inspiring you to do difficult things like drawing hands. We'll switch over our camera here so we can answer any questions that you might have had in chat. And all right, so let's get after that. Okay, so I promised to show you a little bit of this artist's work. And so if you want to go to Instagram and check out Willie's art here, you can see all kinds of beautiful work, figurative work, especially hands. Let's see if we can click in here. And how beautiful these really are. And so I encourage you to go check it out. This artist actually, I think, works in colored pencil, but of course, you can use any kind of medium that you would like. Very talented and beautiful work. So I hope you go check it out. It's definitely a great resource for inspiration here. And you know, obviously there's a lot of figurative work in here as well, but check them out on Instagram, and yeah, go give them a like. Hey everybody, I hope you liked this evening's class. If you did or you learned something new, feel free to throw it in the chat here. I can hang out for a minute or so and answer any questions that you may have, and keep my eye on our chat here. But hands are notoriously difficult to draw, and of course there are a lot of aspects to drawing them and to the hands themselves that we didn't really necessarily get into in this particular class. But I hope that you're inspired to draw something. You can use this grid method for any kind of drawing that you are trying to tackle, especially if you are feeling like it could be very challenging. Grid's a good way to go to get started. And sometimes it can just make things go a little bit faster for you. And as you practice and you do more drawing, you know, it's a muscle that you're building. It's just like working out. Drawing is the same way. And you know, it helps you learn and how to see things and how to use that hand-eye coordination to create beautiful objects in art. So it looks like I don't have any comments yet, but it looks like we are doing pretty good on time. I can't believe it. It's like 2 minutes until 8 o'clock. So that's pretty good. So I'll just keep an eye out here for any other questions. As far as our class goes, I will be putting out materials probably at the end of the week. So keep your eye out for that. I haven't actually started painting this one yet. So let's see, we have a comment here. Awesome. Yeah, give it a practice, and definitely do more challenging poses if you want to. You can look at your hand and draw while, you know, you're looking at it. That's definitely challenging, but a good exercise, and you could do 5-minute exercises that way and just keep growing those muscles. So I think I'm going to let you all go because we are doing pretty good here on time, and I want to respect your evening as well. Again, if you do have questions, you can throw them in our chat. Let's see, Jean does have one question here. Was the name of the Instagram name? I think it's Willie's Art. Search for WILLEYS art, and hopefully that'll come up for you. And I can also try to send it to you, Jean. Since I know you, I can send it over to you. So definitely talented, right? Super inspiring. I think that's why I really wanted to show you all that, was because you may think that hands are not as interesting necessarily as a face, but I think that that artist really shows us how beautiful they can be, and how, you know, you can use a multitude of beautiful colors to create something really vibrant. So all right, okay. Well, I think I'm gonna let you go for real this time. So thanks for your questions. If you do have more questions, um, yeah, let me know, and I'll answer those as they come to my inbox. So I wish you all well. I wish you a happy drawing, and I will see you next month with another class. We'll see you later.